Game bosses are a staple of game design for a reason. They're fun, they work, but so many bosses are variations on the same theme. Find them, start a fight, take them down to zero, move on with your day. Thousands of games are built with bosses that exclusively follow that format. The game loop is designed with that pattern in mind. But is that the only way? What if you made a boss that could stand there and take whatever you could dish out? An impossible boss. Could that work? Impossible bosses cover a whole category of beings that can't be taken out by normal means. The specifics will be different game to game, but the fight will take on some other form than what you're used to. What you have to do might vary, but whatever it is, it won't be like an ordinary fight. Let's talk about how you can put the fun into something impossible. Your beard's looking a little scruffy there. Go from sad basement boy to the king of diamonds with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit from Manscaped. Beards are not easy to maintain on your own, and you don't want to just ignore it. A couple of my friends are in dire need of some beard maintenance right now. They could really use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, which comes with everything you need to make your weird beard into a sheared beard. It's all centered around the Beard Hedger trimmer, with titanium blades for strength, 20 haircutting lengths for versatility, and wireless charging for ultimate convenience. It's even waterproof. After shaving, start your upkeep step. The Pro Kit comes with beard shampoo, which smells great, conditioner, also smells great, beard oil, that one doesn't smell like anything, and beard balm, back to smelling great. For a limited time, the pack also comes with styling accessories, a brush, a beard comb, and scissors to complete the set, as well as a travel bag to keep it all organized on the go. Go get it. Get 20% off plus free shipping at today's sponsor Manscaped with promo code DesignDoc at manscaped.com/DesignDoc. That's manscaped.com/DesignDoc and use code DesignDoc. Over 8 million men trust Manscaped. You can too. Impossible bosses sound like a bad idea. Oh, just make a boss but make it impossible to beat. Yeah, thanks. That seems like it obviously wouldn't work. Games stop being games pretty quickly if a player will never be able to beat a challenge that the game puts in front of them. And yet, there are impossible bosses all over the place. You can probably name a half dozen off the top of your head right now. The idea works. So what are they doing to avoid what seems like an unfixable problem? Impossible bosses aren't normal bosses. They can't be. A boss that works like all the other bosses but is impossible to beat does make the game stop being a game. There has to be something more. Something else to what the boss is doing for it to work. Impossible bosses twist the boss format into something else, but that twist can play on a few different angles. So why even make a boss impossible? Well, it does add some powerful new tools to the toolkit. Let's start with the narrative. It's really common for impossible bosses to be tied to a game's narrative, more so than many other boss tropes. Whether it's establishing a villain as a threat, introducing a great set piece, or driving home a feeling of helplessness in the player, an impossible boss can be especially good at tying together story and gameplay. Narrative-focused impossible bosses are setting things up for the long haul. They're great as the first encounter with a recurring villain. RPGs love to use this through forced-to-lose boss battles. Paper Mario 64 starts out with a fight against Bowser, where, after a few bonks to the head, Bowser decides to cheat, pull out this game's MacGuffin, the Star Rod, becomes invincible, toys around with you a bit, and then one-shots you with a blast of fire. The fight is completely scripted, but with a veneer of gameplay. It establishes how battles work and sets up the main goal of the story, to find the means to overcome Bowser's new invincible form. You could have done this in a cutscene, but making the sequence interactive instead helps fold new players into the game world quicker, even if the outcome is predetermined. Other RPGs bring this out a little later in the game after the player has gotten their bearings. Maybe the main villain hasn't shown up yet, but you find a lieutenant of theirs in your way. Final Fantasy IX's Beatrix has been sent to deal with you on behalf of the Queen. You've seen her a few times in cutscenes by now, and you've taken on some powerful monsters so far. So this should be a great, even match, right? Nah, you suck. She wipes the floor with you, and again later. You've got some work to do still. Time for Disc 2. With these impossible bosses, there's a trap to fall into. Some bosses who are impossible to beat still require you to fight well enough to win before the scenario ends. Beatrix has HP and still has to be taken down to 0 before you win. or at least you have to let her have 10 turns. Even though the fight ends with her destroying you all, if you let your guard down and let her beat you within the fight mechanics themselves, the game treats that as an actual game over. When a game has established that some fights aren't meant to be won, there's going to be a nagging suspicion in the minds of players during other difficult fights. Is this one real? Should I be using items on this? Or am I meant to lose? Because sometimes you are meant to lose. Impossible bosses in a narrative context are perfect for leaning into the idea of a final fate. Not every story has to end with you overcoming the odds for an ultimate victory. The final sequence in Halo Reach shows off what the right kind of fight against impossible odds can do for a story. I wouldn't call Halo Reach's epilogue a boss exactly, it's more of a mini horde mode type thing. But it's the culmination of the unwinnable fight the story has been building throughout the entire game. You and your co-op partners are the last line of defense against an unending stream of Covenant, and the only objective is to survive as long as you can. If your partner goes down, the game will display the teammate waiting to respawn message. That will never happen. The area isn't safe and will never be safe again. You're on your own as your visor cracks. When the end finally arrives for 6, the game delivers a pitch-perfect moment of self-sacrifice and ties together the conclusion that you knew was coming, that the series had described and had been building towards this entire game. It was inevitable, but playing it yourself makes it hit even harder, no matter that you couldn't change it. Not every impossible boss has to be about allegories though. Sometimes the boss just has like really good armor or something. It's less about the story significance and more about figuring out a way around the bulletproof man. Nothing you do will damage them in a way that matters. You have to think of something else. Run, dodge, lure them into a different kind of trap. One of the major points of an impossible boss is that it forces players to think differently. They create a chance to redefine what a game's bosses can be. Resident Evil 2 Remake's Mr. X is a classic. He's one of the most beloved, unbeatable bosses you're forced to avoid. The first third of RE2 takes place in the Raccoon City police station, where you're exploring the place like it's a labyrinth, dealing with zombies, managing resources, and unlocking doors. You get familiar with the station's layout over time as you backtrack and navigate through it. Eventually, the station feels like a terrible second home. The basic zombies aren't a big deal anymore. You've boarded up the windows and cleared the way. Everything is just peachy. Oh no, another zombie with a hat. He's got a hat. The game throws the tyrant, Mr. X, into your perfect cozy zombie home. He's an unstoppable walking machine who's out for your head. For the rest of the time in the RPD, Mr. X will be stalking you through narrow corridors and you can't stop him. The game becomes something like a navigation puzzle, where to get around, you're going to have to effectively juke around him to get to where you need to go. His wide frame and the narrow rooms make it tough to do. You can stun him with powerful weapons, but you can't truly get rid of him until later. You'll be unlocking doors and dealing with zombies like before, but now with the ever-present threat of Hat Man pursuing you. Keep an ear out for his loud footsteps, and plan your moves accordingly. Any hallway you didn't clear out earlier is now a huge problem when you add Mr. X to the mix. And there's no way to quietly sneak around the sound-sensitive lickers anymore when you're rushing to get away from him. Mr. X works as a great finale for the RPD section of the game, as a test of how well you can navigate and use resources wisely to get around an unstoppable threat. It's plenty doable if you know what you're doing, but that first blind run is an unforgettable survival horror challenge. You can also use an impossible boss to add a touch of survival horror to other types of games. Metroid's mostly an action-adventure series, but it's always had a strong sci-fi horror flavor that it dips into on occasion. What's more sci-fi horror than an unstoppable robot chasing after you? The SAX and ME in Metroid Fusion and Dread fit the bill nicely. In Metroid Fusion, you have to deal with the X, floating jelly parasites that pose a seriously scary threat. If it touches organic life, it can kill it, mimic it, and mutate into something even more dangerous. Guess what the SA stands for in SAX? This one copied Super Metroid level Samus Aran and has all of her abilities from that game, like the fully powered wall-cutting ice beam, the screw attack, and explosive power bombs. It's a powerful, soulless husk that will hunt you down without mercy. Not to worry, you've got... Oh, you've got nothing. You're in no shape to even approach this thing. Your robot companion emphasizes this from the start and tells you to stay away from it. If it spots you, don't fight, just run. You don't really have a choice. On and off screen, it'll cause chaos, destroying pathways and unleashing more X-parasites into the other areas of the space station the game takes place in. Fusion does a masterful job of framing the threat that the SAX poses, and the handful of times you run into it are genuinely scary for a first-time player. But it's mostly good because of the framing. The actual gameplay involving it is very limited. It can kill you no problem if it gets a clear shot, but your interactions can only go so far. The few times you encounter it are pretty short and quite scripted. Its AI is rudimentary and easy to mess with as it does things like run back and forth aimlessly in a hallway. The final showdown isn't as cathartic as you might hope, as you just gun it down as quickly as possible. It's not exactly an easy fight, but it's not very dynamic either. Good thing that framing is great. It elevates the X-Parasite threat and is a very memorable villain, but it would take another couple of decades for Metroid to take another crack at this type of boss. Metroid Dread's big hook comes from the Emmy, robot drones that are nigh indestructible, hacked to hunt Samus down and steal her Metroid DNA. The Emmy expand on the SAX concept. They aren't as scary, but they make up for it as a much more mechanically interesting threat to deal with. They're effectively mini-bosses that emphasize navigation and light stealth mechanics. Most of the areas in the game have an Emmy unit, and they're confined to a specific zone where they're found. As you explore the area, you'll go in and out of these Emmy zones and will play a game of cat and mouse with the robot in 1 to 2 minute chunks. They'll climb all over the place and can hear you as you move around. They won't actively chase you if they can't see you, but they will home in on you. When you hear the beep, the Emmy is in the same room. It will find you sooner or later, so you have to get a move on. Fighting the SAX didn't go much beyond waiting for it to leave a room or a simple chase sequence. Fusion didn't have much in the way of stealth or defensive maneuvers, so there was only so much range the developers had to work with in those sections. Dread is built with evasion mechanics in mind. With the Emmy's dynamic movement and AI, you're bound to confront one at some point, and there are just so many more ways to handle it. Your different running, sliding, dashing, wall jumping, and climbing options can come into play. If you're about to be spotted or want to sneak by one, you have the Phantom Cloak. At a cost to your movement, you turn invisible for as long as your stamina bar can hold out, and as long as you don't just bump into it. You'll have plenty of close calls, which is always a thrill. Even if it catches you, you still have a tiny window to parry, stun the robot, and make a break for it. The parry window is somewhat randomized and tough to capitalize on, so you can't rely on it. There's 2 chances, and if you miss, it's game over, and you zip back to the last Emmy door you entered, which won't be more than a couple of minutes of time loss. Before long, you'll find the Emmy's central unit, these little mother brain looking mini bosses that you can dispose of for a temporary power up, the Omega Cannon. This powerful Gatling gun lets you finally face off against the robot head on, take out its armor plating, and finish it off with a well aimed charge shot, bringing an end to the threat and rewarding you with a new ability. You'll go through the same process with each Emmy, but they do become trickier with new powers and tactics that keep you trying to think one step ahead of an enemy you can't just blast your way past. The Emmys are a great test of traversal and stealth, contrast well with the more run and gun elements of Dread, and do a great job of refining an SAX type pursuer boss to highlight the variety of the tools at Samus's disposal. Other impossible bosses can highlight mechanics that might get ignored in normal gameplay. They can force a player to dig deep into their bag of tricks. If you've got a boss that you can't take down with the attack command, what else you got? Early in Final Fantasy VIII, you and your fellow students are on their big field exam to become a member of the mercenary force, SEED. Be on your best behavior. You've got to take out the G army so they don't capture a TV tower. Bang bang boom, work your way through the city, get canonically bored, and head up to the tower. Oop, never mind. You've got 30 minutes until the boat leaves. Head back to shore. Whoops, you should have beamed up that guy some more, cause he has a robot. The XATM-092 is an unstoppable crabbing machine, ready to hit your whole party for massive damage. Zell tells you to run, and you should listen to Zell for once. Not only do you have a timer running, but the robot can heal itself. And not like in the Kiraga way. This guy's doing it in the cutscene set piece way. Way more effective. It's part of a category of impossible bosses who can bring themselves back to life somehow. You can defeat them, just not for long. Think the Regenerator in Dead Space, or Nemesis in RE3. There's no way to take this thing down. As you flee, the robot will keep pursuing you and drawing you into a fight every time it catches up, wasting more of your timer and possibly KOing you if you aren't prepared. Running back through Dalit is a matter of desperately trying to get to the next screen before the robot catches you and warning the dog along the way. Okay, so you can destroy the robot if you're really persistent, but you're not really supposed to. You get an item, but lose both time and an entire cutscene. A self-healing impossible boss with the story beats of defeating the boss and then the revelation that you aren't actually done with them can have a medium-term mini-narrative that feels very different than the usual one-and-done boss structure. The Dalit Town robot is an interactive cutscene tied to flee mechanics that players might not feel the need to use very often. The unusual setup turns what would have been a lot of backtracking through streets into a tense chase scene that feels very different from the usual PS1 era boss encounters and gives cinematic flair to an early chapter of the game. Impossible bosses are also great fits as puzzle bosses. You can make an impossible boss who you have to defeat by doing or solving or finding something first. Back to Paper Mario. The series has dabbled with some invincible antagonists in a few chapters, where the focus is to collect something that lets you get through their defenses. The fourth chapter of the Thousand-Year Door takes place in a haunted house where you take a short tour and encounter a mysterious duplighost enemy. After a simple boss fight where he turns into a purple silhouette of Mario, you get your prize, and the chapter ends. Huh. Kind of short, but whatever. Oh, I'm still here. Oh, he stole my face. Somehow the boss has stolen your face, name, and your entire party. The rest of the chapter is you figuring out how to undo it all. Whenever you try going back to town, you're confronted by the doppelganger, who gives you the Rumpelstiltskin runaround. Guess his name, and you can have your stolen identity returned. Only catch, the lowercase p is missing. He robbed the UI. Even if you already know the name, you can't spell it. Brilliant. Since you can't guess it right, you're thrown into an impossible fight that you can only run from until you find the missing P. This involves a bunch of back and forths and light puzzle solving to find the letter and in the process, the copycat's true name. You go back, reveal the name, he runs away, and you corner him to do a proper boss fight. He's got your stolen moveset as well as your party members, who seem very unconcerned that Mario has been talking this whole chapter. The chapter boss boils down to a simple lock and key adventure game puzzle, but the setup and writing are great. The puzzle creates a new angle for the boss and makes for a unique scenario that has become one of the most memorable chapters in the series. But you know, who labeled all these bosses anyway? Is it really impossible or just very hard? The last category is for impossible bosses that aren't impossible at all. These are the ones where the game warns you that they're impossible, but really the game just doesn't believe in you enough. You can prove it wrong. This style is great for secret endings, New Game Plus runs, and the most hardcore min-maxers, and usually ranks among the game's hardest challenges. The Dynasty Warriors series has one major antagonist that the game begs you to avoid. Do not pursue Lu Bu. If you're foolhardy enough to try anyway, he'll probably obliterate you. Lu Bu is optional in many of the arenas he appears in, which gives the designers the ability to really crank up his difficulty. Lu Bu has the range, skill, speed, power, and morale to blow you up in a couple of seconds. But he's not invincible. You could beat him. As long as you don't kill his girlfriend first, then who knows. It'd be easy enough to make him actually invincible, where taking him on would be pointless. But the combination of how heavily the game telegraphs that he's out of your league, the level of difficulty you'll find if you do face him, and that nagging feeling that you could actually take him down if you're just better at the game, creates a dynamic to strive for, and a pre-built challenge ready to go on a second or third playthrough, once you've gotten better at combat. When one of these fake-out impossible bosses shows up at the beginning of the game just like a threat-establishing narrative impossible boss, you can play out a lot of fun what-if scenarios. Devil May Cry 5 has a modern classic one of these in Urizen, a new demonic big bad so powerful that not even Dante could beat him. What hope do you have as a severely weakened Nero? On your first run, you're not likely to do much more than chip damage before Urizen takes out your whole health bar and kicks you out of the fight. You're in no shape to succeed. But defeat isn't strictly guaranteed. It's very hard, it's tedious as hell, but you can chip them down to 0 on this very first playthrough. If you persevere, you get a secret ending, and truly we live in the best of all possible worlds. The fight in secret is intended to be more of a cool Easter egg for a New Game Plus playthrough when you have your full kit of upgrades, weapons, and abilities. But if you want it badly enough, you can go for it. Urizen hits all the main categories we've talked about. It works as a narrative opener and stake-setting encounter, a very hard mechanical test, and still rewards the most dedicated fans with secret content. He's the whole package. Let's talk about impossible bosses in the comments. Most of them are unique, so highlight the uniqueness of your favorites. Impossible bosses are designed for a supporting purpose, whether it's through an ultimate challenge for those who believe in their skills, a narrative anchor point to cement a villain's place in a story, or just a refreshing change of pace to keep the game loop from getting stale. Impossible bosses are great motifs to throw a curveball at just the right time.